In the opening scene, we meet Justin Sanderson, a journalist known for his keen investigative skills. He's at the airport, preparing to fly to Tel Aviv, Israel. While walking through the terminal, Justin spots a familiar book on a shelf, his own, titled The End of Civility. Intrigued, he approaches the shelf and soon encounters a fellow traveler, Joe Beaumont. Joe immediately recognizes Justin and excitedly asks for an autograph, expressing his admiration for Justin's work. Grateful for the support, Justin buys a copy of his book and signs it for Joe. Later, while waiting at the terminal, Justin speaks with his wife on the phone. She sounds sad about his departure, telling him how lonely she'll feel. Justin reassures her, explaining that he's going on this trip after witnessing something unusual that demands further investigation. As they talk, he begins to notice some strange coincidences. Today's date is October 15th, his flight number is 1015. And due to a delay, the new departure time is 10:15 instead of 9:30. After some time, the passengers, including Justin, begin boarding the flight. As he steps inside, he notices a family struggling with their seating arrangements, trying to settle their children. In an unexpected gesture of kindness, Justin offers his seat to the family, helping them get comfortable. He then moves to the main cabin, where he meets Joe again. As Justin settles into his new seat, he spots something unusual, an MP3 player tucked behind the seat in front of him. Curious, he plugs in his earphones and starts listening to a podcast titled Enigmatic, with an episode named The Tragic Mystery of Flight 1015. To his shock, the narrator discusses the very flight he's on, predicting that within the next hour, the plane will disappear from radar and never be found. Intrigued yet uneasy, Justin keeps listening. When the podcast reveals the flight captain's name, Donna, Justin's concern grows, and he urges a nearby passenger to listen to the podcast, hoping it's a coincidence. But the passenger rudely refuses and switches seats. Left with no one to confide in, Justin continues listening, his anxiety mounting. The next part of the podcast predicts that a bird will strike the plane at exactly 10:21. To Justin's horror, at that precise moment, a bird collides with the aircraft, sending him into a panic. Desperate to regain his composure, Justin hurries to the restroom, repeatedly telling himself that the past cannot affect the present. After this, Justin returns to his seat and calls over a flight attendant, seeking answers about the bird strike and the strange engine noise. The attendant, however, claims no knowledge of either incident and denies Justin's request to speak with the captain, insisting that it would only cause unnecessary alarm. Frustrated, Justin loses his temper, shouting something completely out of character for him. Realizing his mistake almost immediately, he apologizes to the flight attendant, promising to remain quiet. Trying to regain his composure, Justin resumes listening to the podcast. The narrator ominously predicts that the plane will vanish at exactly 11:15, with the captain's final words being, "Good night, New York." This revelation pushes Justin into deeper agitation. Desperate for answers, he gets up to search for clues. Soon, he discovers that the passengers can see the cockpit through cameras set up in the cabin. The podcast adds that some kind of device interfering with the flight's communication system might be causing the strange events. Growing suspicious, Justin fixates on two foreign men engrossed in their devices. Without hesitation, he approaches them and rudely demands that they turn off their phones. The men calmly explain that their phones are already in airplane mode, but Justin refuses to believe them. The situation escalates, leading to an argument until flight attendants intervene, ordering Justin to return to his seat. After digging deeper into the podcast, Justin learns about a passenger named Igor Orlov, who happens to be on the same flight to Tel Aviv. Orlov is set to testify against the Russian mafia, which leads Justin to suspect that the flight might have been sabotaged by the mafia to silence him. At the same time, Justin considers the possibility that there might be an undercover U.S. air marshal on board, someone who could provide critical information about the plane's safety. Armed with this theory, Justin once again approaches a flight attendant, requesting to speak with the air marshal. However, the attendant, visibly frustrated by Justin's constant requests, firmly asks him to stay in his seat. Feeling ignored, Justin turns to Joe for help. Joe, a former pilot, suggests that air marshals often think in similarly deceptive ways to terrorists, which only fuels Justin's paranoia. This inadvertently convinces Justin to investigate the belongings of the Russian passengers. Seizing a moment when the Russians are asleep, Justin sneaks into their luggage compartment and begins rummaging through their bags, searching for anything suspicious. Some passengers notice his erratic behavior, but Justin presses on. While attempting to open the overhead compartment, he accidentally drops a bag onto one of the Russian passengers, causing a commotion. The startled passenger confronts Justin, and an argument erupts. In the heat of the moment, Justin blurts out that the Russian mafia is planning to kill Igor Orlov, triggering panic among the other passengers. Even Igor Orlov, who had been quietly sitting in the first-class section, rushes out, visibly alarmed and afraid for his life. To de-escalate the situation, Captain Donner emerges from the cockpit and warns Justin to stop causing disturbances. Other passengers begin recording Justin on their phones, pressuring him to quietly return to his seat. Back in his seat, Justin resumes listening to the podcast, only to be shocked when the narrator reveals that he is directly linked to the flight's disappearance, even playing audio of his earlier altercation with the Russian passengers. Stunned, Justin has little time to react before Captain Donner escorts him to the flight attendant station to discuss his erratic behavior. Despite this intervention, Justin continues to argue, warning the captain not to say goodnight, New York, insisting it will be the last thing they hear before the plane vanishes. This convinces the captain that Justin is experiencing a psychotic episode. Shortly afterward, the air marshal reveals her identity and places Justin under arrest for threatening the flight's safety. Seated beside the air marshal, Justin is informed that he will receive immediate psychological assistance upon landing. Undeterred, he tries to convince her that he is not suffering from a breakdown and claims to have evidence of the impending danger, but she remains unconvinced. While she consults with the pilot, Joe approaches Justin and expresses his belief in him, suggesting that being on this plane opens up a realm of possibilities. After some thought, Justin proposes that Joe, being a pilot himself, should take control of the aircraft and land it safely in Canada or another secure location before it disappears. However, to accomplish this, Joe needs the passcode to access the cockpit. Justin becomes convinced that the passcode to the cockpit is 1015, as everything surrounding the flight seems to revolve around that number. Armed with this knowledge, Joe successfully enters the cockpit, incapacitates Captain Donner, and seizes control of the plane. Panic spreads quickly among the passengers. But before they can react, Joe lowers the cabin's air pressure, causing everyone to lose consciousness. In a chilling twist, he then utters the words Justin had warned about, "Good night, New York." Later, Justin awakens on the shore of a remote island, with a floating doll nearby, revealing that the plane has crash-landed in the water. Confused and alarmed, he frantically looks around but finds no other people in sight. Desperate for answers, Justin stumbles upon the same MP3 player he had listened to on the flight. He plays it once more, and the podcast narrator continues the story of Flight 1015, explaining how an extensive search was launched but yielded no results. After several days, a cargo ship discovered a small island where most of the flight survivors had managed to stay alive, except for one person. The narrator goes on to reveal that Justin Sanderson was reported missing, his whereabouts unknown on the deserted island. At that moment, Justin looks up and sees the entire flight crew and passengers approaching him, their expressions filled with anger. Realizing what's about to happen, Justin panics as they blame him for the crash and begin to physically attack him. Overwhelmed and defenseless, Justin succumbs to their rage, resulting in his tragic death. Please like and subscribe for more video like this. Thanks for watching.